Yeah, guys, just take a moment if you don't mind. Just close your eyes just for a second. Just put your hands on your heart. And sometimes it's just helpful just to say the word thank you over and over and over and over and over again. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you're just saying thank you, just think about the people, the places, the things, the opportunities, the moments, like just anything that comes to your mind. Is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What's something that you just need to release, you need to let go of this morning? Remember, Jesus says that tomorrow has enough cares of its own, right? Don't be anxious about tomorrow. It's not going to serve you. Which of you, by being anxious, can add any amount of money to your bank account, can add any bit of health to your body, can add any bit of healing to a relationship? You can't. So just release the anxiety, surrender it, try to be present, and then just seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness today. How can we do that? And just make that commitment as even as we're here, even as you're on this call this morning, we've got 25 minutes or so left together. Just say, Lord, I'm going to seek first your kingdom right now and your righteousness. And I'm going to trust that all those other things will be added unto me, all of my basic needs. And I can promise you guys by being a part of this call this morning and by listening to what we're going to talk about, trust me, it's going to help with your needs. All right. Good to see everybody. Thank you guys for being on camera. It makes it so much more fun for me to see all of your shining faces. So appreciate all that. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. So, as you guys know, we're going through the book of Proverbs just on repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. I'm just encouraging all of you guys to just pick a proverb a day. You might be like me, and some days you drag, you get held back a little bit because you get so sucked into one specific chapter. It's so juicy, and it might take you a little bit longer. That's totally fine. I just think the moral of the story is make a consistent effort just to get really practical, pragmatic, uh, actionable truth into your brain, into your heart every single day. So I wanted to talk about Proverbs 27. So if you guys want to, if anyone here wants to open up to Proverbs 27, I would encourage you to read along. So there's a couple different passages about stewardship and the benefit that comes from that I love in this chapter. If you We'll start with something small, but we'll focus most of our time on the next verses. So Proverbs 27:18. Thank you, God, for your word. Bless your word. Help us to walk in obedience to it. Okay, so Proverbs 27:18. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and whoever takes care of his master will be honored. Right? So you've got this. So I want you guys to picture a fig tree, right? What do fig trees need? They need pruned, they need watered, they need the right soil, they need the right conditions. And if you want to eat of its fruit, you got to tend to it. Now, I know that might seem pretty obvious, right? If any of us had friends that were farmers, they were fig farmers, and we went over to their farm and they hadn't, and the figs the leaves are yellow, the fruit's fallen off, you can just tell that they're dying. They weren't watering, they weren't fertilizing, they weren't feeding it. And your friend was just praying and said, "Hey, can you come over to my house and have a prayer gathering and lay hands on my plants?" I think all of us would be like, "Well, I'll pray for your plants, but have you thought about a little bit of water first? Have you thought about a little fertilizer first? I mean, when's the last time you pruned that sucker? That thing's got dead leaves all over it. I mean, let's not be ridiculous here, right? And I know that, guys, this is really hard for me to do, is to repeat myself over and over and over again. But anytime you study any kind of marketing lessons or teaching lessons or instruction, it's just that people need to hear the same thing sometimes 100 times and sometimes 100 different ways before it sticks. So I'm just going to keep repeating myself over and over and over again because The word does, and I think it's really important that we do this, but we really have to get clear on what can we do on our part in this partnership with God to be financially prosperous, right? You guys with me? You with me this morning? Okay. Because here there's a promise, right? If you want to eat if you want to eat of its fruit, if you tend to it, the fig tree, you're going to eat of its fruit, right? Even here, he says, whoever takes care of his master will be honored. Now we could go down a whole like rabbit trail on this sucker, but if you think about it, you've got your bank account, you've got your career, you've got a business, whatever it is, right? It's like a fig tree that must be tended to, right? It's critical if you want to eat of its fruit. You got to tend to that sucker. And there's a lot of people that will complain. How many of you guys are unhappy in maybe your career, or you're unhappy with maybe the amount of business that you're getting? Because you could say, okay, whoever guards his master. It's funny when entrepreneurs are like, well, I became an entrepreneur so I don't have to have a boss. Well, your new boss is your clients, right? Because they're the ones who pay you. They're the ones who are ultimately in charge in a sense, right? How many of you guys are like, I would like a little bit of improvement in those areas, whether where I'm working or who I'm working for? Anybody? Okay. Well, a lot of people, not obviously no one here on this call would do this, but a lot of people are going to complain about being unrecognized or unrewarded in their career. But if you look at it here, it says, whoever takes care of his master will be honored. I know I've told you guys recently there was someone in my family who Southwest did 1,750 layoffs, I believe, and they're the only one that survived. But that's because they're the kind of person that is always looking to how they can take care of their boss. I mean, they just go above and beyond. And a lot of people want advancement, but they're not being diligent to look after the needs of their employer. There's a lot of people that are quiet quitting. And have you guys ever heard of that right now? Or there's a lot of people that are just kind of mailing it in like, hey, I can get all my work done in 10 hours. So in the other 30, maybe I'll just get another job on top of that and never talk to my boss. It might be a problem, right? Versus, hey, I've got free time. Let me go to them and say, hey, what else can I do to add value? Does that make sense, everybody? And then they wonder why they're not getting promoted. They wonder not why they're not getting advancement. So you need to be ensuring that you're producing fruit, right? This is especially true for people that are working for somebody else. Are you producing fruit for the company, right? Or are you doing the bare minimum? And I want you guys to ask, like, when is the last time you went to your employer and said, how can I make the business more healthy? How can I make raise your hand if if you work for someone else. Anybody? Okay, most of you. Okay. How can I make the business more profitable? How can I increase profit? How could I increase customer satisfaction? How can I do better? Right? Or even better, where can you just take action on your own and then just report and say, hey, this is what I got done? How can you go above and beyond? If you guys really want to be nearly indispensable and the last person to be let go, if ever, this is how you show up. This is how you show up. Guard your master, honor them. Okay. So that's just my one little takeaway. I'm just going to talk about a couple of different passages today. I just think it's really important that, again, guys, like when there's contraction in the economy, there's contraction in a workplace, and they're having to do layoffs and let people go. Trust me, the people that get let go last, if ever, again, are the people that are just going absolutely above and beyond to tend to their employer's business like a fig tree, as if it were their own. Okay? I just want to encourage you that if you show up like that, you're going to it's only a matter of time before you're going to be acknowledged and you're going to be advanced and rewarded. And if you're doing it for years and years and nothing ever happened, well, then that's shocking and go find someplace else. Honor someone else. But it's very rare that I see that. It's very rare that I see that and it's not acknowledged. Okay. Okay, but here's a verse I really, really, really wanted to get into because I really love Proverbs 27. Okay, verse 23 through 27. So I'm going to read this. So very similar, right? So think of there's certain areas of your life, and we're just going to talk mainly about finances today, but think of it like a fig tree. It has to be tended to, right? Specifically here, look at 23 to 27. Pay careful attention to the condition of your flocks. Set your mind on your herds. For riches do not last forever, nor does a crown last from generation to generation. When the hay is removed and new grass appears, and the grass from the hills is gathered in, the lambs will be for your clothing, and the goats will be for the price of a field. And there will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and for sustenance of your servant girls. Cool. Take a second, look it over again. So guys, this passage is all about you have to take care of what you got because it's not going to last forever, right? Riches will not last forever. Okay. So again, you're not going to live forever. Your career's not going to last forever. The economy is not going to go great forever, right? That interest rate that you're getting is not going to last forever. So pay attention to it, guard it. So I want to talk a little bit now about being a steward shepherd or a shepherd steward. Does that sound cool? Let's talk about that. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself what is, because how many of you guys actually have flocks like goats and sheep to this day? You got animals. Anybody? Yeah, no. So this metaphor doesn't or this teaching can be a little bit, huh? Like I don't have goats. I don't have sheep. I don't have any animals, okay? But yes, you do. Yes, you do. Every person on this call has flocks. The question is, what do they represent in today's terms? Okay. So flocks can represent many areas in finance. So what do you guys think? Let's pop it in the chat. What do you think flocks could represent? You got sheep. Everyone here's got sheep. Oh yeah, Mary's like, I actually do have sheep. Well, good for you, Mary. So think about it. What could flocks be? So flocks, the sheep, the goats, they are how a shepherd stores their wealth. Okay? Right? Shepherds out in the field, they're not sitting on gold bars and, in a nice 401k package. They don't have their high yield savings account set up 2,000 years ago. It's probably not what they're doing. Maybe there's some shepherds walking around with a little bit of gold in their pockets. I don't know. But if you think about it for a shepherd, like, so the flocks are how you would multiply your wealth, right? Think about it. If you want more wealth as a shepherd, what do? You breed them suckers like Jacob, right? You put one and one together so that they create more than two, right? That's how you grow your wealth. If you were a shepherd, you're like, okay, I'm going to get my flocks together and we're going to let them do their thing, right? Flocks are what are used for trade, right? If you had goat's milk, if you had wool, right? It's what you would trade. It was currency. It was a form of currency. Are you guys picking up? Are you tracking with me? Okay. It's currency. Flocks are what provide for the daily needs of the shepherd, right? They are your livelihood. They are your income streams and your assets. That's what flocks are to you. So, guys, like, what are your income streams? What are your assets? Think about it. What are your flocks, quote unquote? So, the bottom line when you think about flocks is anything that is going to provide for your needs must be protected. It must be nurtured like a flock of goats, like a flock of sheep. If you don't give them water, if you don't give them food, if you don't pay attention to them, if you don't guard them from the thieves and the wolves and the conditions and all of those things that could happen, if you don't give them fresh grass, and move them on if there's a drought, they're going to die. And then you're going to be sitting there like a broke shepherd wondering, where's all my sheep? Where's all my goats? It's like, well, you got to protect them. You got to honor them. Someone write down, it pays to pay attention to my money. You got to pay attention to it. Some of you are like, I don't like talking about numbers. Guess what? Numbers aren't necessarily my favorite thing all the time either, but you got to pay attention to it. We get clients all the time that have no idea where they're what the heck they're invested in. What's going on with their stocks? What's going on with their insurance? What's going on with the status of their career? What's going on with their savings? What's going on? Guys, these are your flocks. These are your goats, right? So he could have just as easily have said in the modern version. I haven't read the message interpretation on this, but pay careful attention to your retirement account. Pay careful attention to your stocks. Pay careful attention to your customers. How many of you have customers? Raise your hand. Okay? That's how you make money, right? In a sense, they could be a form of sheep, they could be a form of goats. Thank you all for being my goats today. I appreciate that. Thank you for being my goats. You're much better looking than goats and smell much better, I'm sure. Okay? Pay careful attention to your employers, right? Just like we were talking about earlier, pay attention to them. How are they doing? How's the business doing? How can I improve it? Right? Some of you guys have like your employer right now, they might be going through a tough time in the business. How's everything going? Pay attention to it. Don't wait until all of a sudden everything's imploding for you to pay attention. Find out. If things might seem tight, ask, how's it going? How can I help? Where do you need my help? Is your career safe? Is it in jeopardy? Do you even have a clue? A lot of people, it's like they wake up one day and they're like, yeah, you're getting laid off. They had no idea because they weren't paying attention carefully to it. Pay attention to your marketing campaign. Pay careful attention to your sales process, right? These are things that make you money. Sheep and goats. Make sense? Pay careful attention to your operation systems. Pay careful attention to your savings account. Pay careful attention to your real estate portfolio. Pay careful attention to your insurance policies. Here's the point, guys. Again, pay careful attention to anything and everything that has inherent monetary value. Pay attention to it. Just like sheep, just like goats. Pay careful attention to every asset, every vehicle with the potential to make you money and provide for you. Or in a nutshell, be a good steward shepherd of all the material possessions that God has entrusted to you. All right, you guys ready for some reflection questions? Here's what I want you guys to ask yourselves, okay? Write this down. How well am I currently paying attention to the condition of my money? How well am I paying attention to the condition of my money, to your financial resources? So, again, think about your savings, your investments, your income streams. Are there areas where you are neglecting or you're totally unaware of what's going on with your sheep and your goats that you need to address this week? And if you say nothing, then you're lying because all of us have something, right? All of us have something. Is there somebody you need to follow up with? Is there a task you need to knock out? Is there a relationship you need to nurture? I didn't even talk about that. I mean, think about the relationships in your life. Some of you guys have your one relationship or one conversation away from a big income opportunity. Could very well consider that person part of the flock. or soon to be. Next time you send an email to your boss, say thank you for being my goat. Next time you talk to one of your clients, thank you for being my goat. See what they say. All right. So yeah, just ask yourself like how can I improve in that in any of these areas? Like, where do you need to level up? What is something you need to address this week? And I want you to be really, really, really specific. Don't just say like my bank account, my money, my investments. Be specific. Like what's something, especially in the modules, something we've been talking about that you need to improve. Hey, I'm going to pay very close attention to this week. Because guys, here's what I just learned over the years, and is that so many, like I talked about this at the beginning, but so many of us in the church are upset or disappointed with God when in reality God has already given us the way. He's given us the wisdom. God, why am I struggling? Why don't I have abundance? How come these other people are doing so well and not me? Well, guys, I can tell you almost every single time it comes down back down to there's something in God's word that we're ignoring. There's something we're not paying attention to. There's some bit of wisdom and truth that is not being addressed. Again, guys, I am not here to toot my horn, but I'm telling you, I've grown up in church my whole life. Unless I was just tuning out because I didn't want to hear it, I've never heard anyone really talk about these kind of verses and apply it in these ways. I just don't hear this kind of stuff very often. So that's why we're talking about it. We could talk about so many things. You guys know I'm a fanatic of the gospel. I would love to talk about the gospel every week. But I already know a lot of your churches are doing that, and a lot of them are neglecting these sorts of things. So this is why we talk about it. You feel me? This is why we're talking about this stuff, because you have to address this stuff too. If you don't address these kinds of verses and this kinds of wisdom, it's kind of half baked, and you're going to walk away getting frustrated financially. Okay. So that's one. That's your first question. Second question, who's ready? By the way, guys, I would encourage you to pop in the chat. Pop in the chat. What is your reflection in terms of the answers here for the first one? Again, how well are you doing paying attention to some of these things? Where do you need to pay more careful attention? What are you going to stop neglecting? What are you going to fix this week? What are you going to address? And as you guys know, put some timelines on this sucker. Don't just be like, I'm going to address this one day, someday, somehow, some way. I want you to put, here's when I'm going to deal with it. Here's when I'm going to address it. Make sense? Okay. Second question. What is one specific step you can take this week to set your mind, right, or to pay careful attention to your financial resources and ensure that they are well managed and multiplied? So, like I was just saying, it's basically a follow up of the first question. What is one specific step that you can take today or this week to set your mind on your money and make sure it's well managed? Make sure that it's multiplied. Love that, guys. This is good. So, Denise, that's really good, but try to be really specific with that, okay? As specific as you can. So, Phoebe, we got Monarch for that. So, you could use our budgeting training and app for that. That'd be good. Cool. So, when are you going to set some time to focus on it? And what specifically are you going to focus on, Denise, with that? All right. Last question I want you guys to ask just to reflect on. Are there any areas of waste or inefficiency in how I'm managing my money or how I make money that I need to address? Are there any areas of waste or inefficiency in how I manage my money or how I make money that I need to address? Tammy, a good cure for spending too much on Amazon is to get it off of Temu, and then you have to wait like a month to get it, but it's way cheaper. It forces you to ask, hey, do I really want this that bad? If I have to wait a month for it? I mean, guys, again, I mean, Tammy, if you think about it too, if you think about, okay, your bank account like sheep and like goats, right? What would happen if you were a glutton and you over milked your goats, right? Even after the milk was gone, you're like, I'm just gonna keep on squeezing these suckers and try to get as much out. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen to those udders or teats, or whatever you want to call them? Okay, they're gonna get raw. They're gonna bleed out. They're probably gonna get infected. You're gonna kill your sheep. You're gonna kill your goats, right? What would happen if you were like, man, I'm just so hungry. I just want to eat, 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 and you killed too many of your sheep, and you didn't leave enough for them to reproduce? What's going to happen? Eventually, you're not going to have a flock, right? So, again, I want you guys to think about your bank account. I want you to think about any of these sorts of things like sheep and goats. We have to use the same common sense that you would if we were all farmers. That's the problem, is that, again, like your money can feel so intangible, right? But if you were an actual farmer and sheep and go, you would see this so much different. You would see your finances so much different. And I want you guys to just try to really think about like when you're thinking about how you're spending, when you're thinking, when you're showing up at work, when you're thinking, I want you just to have put on your glasses, right? Put on your glasses, your sheep and goat glasses, and just be like, okay, if these were real sheep and these were real goats, and I was really, really somebody who was a farmer or a shepherd, how would I treat this? How would I show up? Make sense? Awesome. So take a moment, guys. Again, if you haven't already, pop in the chat. What is your action item? What are you going to do? How are you going to improve? What are you going to address this week so that you are tending to your fig tree? You are paying very close attention to your flocks. Take one more minute and just write it down. And when are you going to do that? What are you going to do to improve? Be very specific.